All right, Logitech, you got some stuff to work on.
They do. Logitech
All right.
has. Okay. Well, everyone, Scott Mulvahill. I'll be clapping. We are socially distanced.
We actually have been wearing masks this whole setup, so.
But
Mom, I know you're gonna be thinking about it. So.
Yeah, as you ought to be. I'm just gonna let him play a song as a way of kicking us off. So take it away, Scott.
I've been naive and foolish. My eyes only seen what they wish denied. The crimes in front of me. I gave you all of my trust. Blind faith kept me in the fight for us. The cause was lost and I should have seen. Maybe I've been wrong before. The battles we fought, I thought it was a holy war. Smoke crawls back, I lift my eyes. All this time I was fighting for the wrong side. Fighting for the wrong side. Whoa. I marched like a toy soldier, obeyed every last order to keep the peace, so I believed. Now you treat me like a stranger, walked out of my life and changed my world today. You made me your enemy. Baby, I've been wrong before. The battles we fought, I thought it was a holy war. Smoke crawls back, I lift my eyes. All this time I was fighting for the wrong side. Fighting for the wrong side. Oh. I tell you what my heart breaks for. Wasted love that I'll see no more. Smoke crawls back, I lift my eyes. All this time I was fighting for the wrong side. Fighting for the wrong side. Oh.
Yeah. Woo. I know that people are clapping to themselves or crying or just drinking more. I don't know.
laughing at my sorrow and misfortune.
Yeah. You shouldn't have fought for that side. That's my point. Hi everyone. Welcome to the second edition of Nashville Lowdown, and thanks again for patience with us. This time we got started on time with that Logitech camera. I paid $200 for that.
You paid $200 for that?
Yeah, because they're all sold out.
Here, let's make sure they can hear you too. I think hopefully they get. Should we bring that mic a little closer in, Ron?
Yeah, just gonna do that.
Make sure that
I don't have to social distance from the microphone.
No, the mic is all. That's all fair game.
Great.
Yeah.
So welcome. Thanks for being our second. You know, I feel like you had to be, because in the first one, Victor, Matt Cohen,
he
who's
plugged
watching
me pretty
now,
good.
asked about who Victor was watching as an up and coming, and he went to you, and so it makes sense that we would have you next.
That's actually crazy. The fact that this series now consists of me and Victor Wooten is not bad.
And it's about to include Billy Sheehan.
Yes.
And Mike Brignadello. So,
yes.
It's going to be happening. But thank you. Scott is as you heard, just an amazing musician. And I was just sitting there thinking while you were playing, because that song is my favorite. That I know we talked about you playing 2 songs. I think you're going to have to do 3.
That's fun.
I just want to hear you. It's just so much fun to hear you play live, and your intonation and your voice. And it's just so wonderful. But as a way of introducing you, I didn't know. I'd heard Scott Mulvahill's name come up here and there as a songwriter in town. But one day, a gentleman I hope to have on this show at some point, Brent Milligan, just out of the blue, he's a producer, great bass player, great producer in town, just texted me and said, dude, you got to check out this album. And he sent me a link to Himalayas. And I said, well, I kind of remember that name floating up here and there. And so I went home and I downloaded the album and I listened to it 3 times in a row, just like that night. I was just like, from beginning to end. And I was so amazed on so many levels by it. And the songwriting, the upright bass playing. I mean, if you're not familiar with the album, a lot of the album is that. It's an upright in your voice. Yeah. And Charlie Peacock, I think, was involved in some production on it as well.
Yep.
Who's, in my view, an amazing bass player, because he writes great bass parts in his head, even though he's a piano player.
It's funny because we collaborated on something recently, a song that he wrote and had me record and sing bass part and vocal, and he had sent me like this MIDI bass part, kind of like with my style in mind. It was genius. It was like he had written it, and so it was like an upright patch, you know, and so he sent me, here, replace this and sing it, and like it was like, yeah, of course.
Well, it's funny because he's such a great producer. If you're not familiar with his work, but he, you know, probably the most recent thing people know is Civil Wars. You know, he produced Civil Wars, but he's always used amazing bass player. And I didn't know for years, because I listened to him when I was in high school. Anything he produced, I listened to, because it had Tommy Sims on it, Jackie Street, Mark Hill. And I never knew that he was writing the bass parts.
Yeah.
You know, and Tommy later was like, yeah, I didn't write those.
Yeah.
You know, and Tommy writes great bass parts.
Of course,
but, you know, so I got turned on to your music that way. And I've told Brent, I hope he's able to watch. And I texted him today and asked, I hoped he could join in. But I was so thankful, because I had not heard someone approach the bass and songwriting in this way. And that song, since I've met you and we spent time together, I've learned how you wrote that song, why you wrote that song, and how that song is kind of this centerpiece of a whole new march with the bass. Can you mind? I know you probably tell the story a lot, but could you?
You know, of course, song? You know, well, and I guess you would want to know that I started music as a bass player, but then I got into singing and songwriting separately, and it wasn't until I think 2014. It was the very first time I had tried to like write and sing and play together. So this was a new concept for me. And the song I just played was actually the first tune I wrote, upright bass and voice alone. And so, and man, that was just such a challenge to me, because it was, because it's so sparse, and like, how do you make these two things work together? And so to me, it was a paradigm shift on my whole music, because I had made some recordings and as a songwriter, like playing guitar, or with a band, and, you know, kind of like a couple attempts at something, but this was much when I wrote that song, it was much more like, oh, this sounds like me. Like this sounds like something that I could offer that no one else could. And not no one else, but it's sort of an odd combination of things, you know.
And I think that, I mean, that's to me what struck me about the album is I'm listening to it that night over and over, and I'm like, I have not heard anything like that. I'm a big fan of Edgar Meyer as bass player, John Petitucci's upright, of course, Ron Carter, Stanley Clarke, but it's the singing, it's the way in which the sparseness gets filled in with these kind of long, sad vocals. And I've talked at length with Victor and Billy Sheehan both about the first night I introduced the music to them, and they were all sitting around it, and I'm like, they're like it's how long you hold a note is different. Like there were things like that I was noticing, and I'm sure most people, I know some of these people watching do this, gonna, oh, he's holding the note, but most people aren't. Your fans aren't going to sit there and go, I do say he's holding that note for just this, just a 16th note longer than most bass players would. But it's that kind of thing. There was something about the way in which you release the note that utilized space in a different way. And the first time that I let some of my friends hear it, who were bass players, they're like, okay, this is different. And if they weren't bass players, I think Deb Cohen's watching right now. The first time, I won't tell the whole story when she listened, but she got really excited. And this was like we were sitting around my table, and it sounds kind of evangelistic, but like I love introducing people to your music.
You can, hey, evangelistic, go for it. Yeah,
because it's not something it's not something I've heard before. So you were with Ricky Skaggs, doing bluegrass when you started experimenting with this kind of approach to the upright. And I should point out, I can't remember, and I'm not even sure if I was there, Scott, but I may have been. When you were a kid, you came to the Wooten camp.
Yeah, when I was 16.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just finished high school, so I would have been 17, I think.
And was at the park?
Montgomery
Bell Park.
Montgomery Bell Park, Base Nature Camp, Victor Wooten. If you go, you'll end up like me, so careful. If that
that's I mean, it's an unusual. That's one of the things that's impressed me when I learned that. I was like, okay, a lot of people that come to that camp, they're and you're just really like, even when you play the electric, you have a laid back approach to it. It's very melodic. So you're out there, you're playing with Ricky Skaggs, and you end up on tour with Bruce Hornsby, who's just an amazing person. And that kind of changed some direction with you as well, right?
In that, especially the combination of playing with Ricky and Bruce at the same time, because they're kind of yin and yang in a lot of ways, where Ricky will experiment. He's such a fun loving musician where he'll like go anywhere, but his normal mindset is very well, like, I was going to say the word structured, but I kind of like, he knows where he stands in like the tradition of bluegrass music, and he delivers that every night generally in his shows. And not that he won't experiment, but he's more like order on that. And then like Bruce Hornsby is more chaos, where it's like mid song, it's like, we're going to this other song, and he just goes, or he won't even tell you, he'll just do it, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, I hope I know this one. I probably don't, but let's go for it. And so the two of them was so fun to play with, because they had just really different but equally brilliant approaches to music, and that that time in that precious time of our tour, of the Skaggs Hornsby tour, was probably a couple months altogether, and so but by the end of that, we did this cruise called Kayamo, and that was like a music cruise. And because we were stuck on a boat for several days, I felt brave enough to ask Bruce, like, can I pick your brain on these songs I'm writing and what I'm doing? And he kind of, and I've told this story at my shows and stuff too, but it really is so good. I showed him some stuff I was working on at the time. This would have been 2013. And he basically was just like, this is good. Sounds fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
But
it's just paraphrasing, like, there's just nothing interesting about it, or it doesn't have a reason to exist. But
soft pedaled it.
Right. Yeah. Like, but like, but that's what I was like, okay, you're right. You're probably right. But it got my wheels turning. And actually, I mean, anytime somebody who you would consider a master will take the time to give you their opinion and the truth is like, it's huge, it's so valuable. So I'll be grateful for that forever because it set me on the path to write Fighting for the Wrong Side. And I was singing a song. Well, actually, we were on tour playing a song called 2020 Vision, bluegrass number. And I was playing a bass intro and then Bruce would sing it. And after that tour, I started singing it and it would kind of open my eyes to the concept of singing and playing the bass because I had done both. But like I said, I hadn't put them together. And
so you sent that song to, when you wrote it, you said that's my favorite part of the story. So this, I mean, you can say it how he said it. But I love the fact that you followed up. You didn't just, I mean, you took his criticism and you took it to heart. You went to work, you created something, and then you sent it back to him and said, "What about this?" Right?
Yeah, and I'll
paraphrase.
I'll self-censor, self-censor because in case any of the young ears are listening. But yeah, Bruce. So I sent him Fighting for the Wrong Side, and he called me on the phone, and he goes, I pick it up. Hey, Bruce, what's up? You effing did it, man. Yeah, man, you did it, man. And it was awesome because he was very warm and kind of raved about it. And that's not to say, like, honestly, I kind of asked him for advice again at the beginning of this year. And it's like, and he'll still give me some hard criticism, like truly. And I appreciate that so much. Like I need it, and I need it then, and I need it now because it's an evolution thing. It's not
what a gift though. I mean,
awesome.
I mean, he's one of my favorite musicians ever. And to the idea, and for good reason, right? He's this amazing genius in so many ways, but to have that resource, to have someone who will shoot it to you straight.
Yeah.
But also when you do it right, is there saying you did it right.
Yeah.
And that's impressive to me about that song, because when I listen to the Himalayas album, and I usually do from beginning to end, because to me, it's a concept album. I've never asked you about that, but I have this notion that from the beginning to the end, it's about climbing the Himalayas. And there's and so I treat it that way, and I have the record and play it on my record player. But I feel that particular song to me is just like the epitome of your style.
Yeah.
And then all the other songs sound different, of course, but like that one, when I hit that the first time, I played that twice. I was just like, okay, I got to get my head around the lyrics. I get my head around what he's doing on the bass, his vocals. And for people watching, I mean, obviously you just heard Scott play live, but Scott and I had, reached out to Scott. Once I listened to the album, like the next day, I hit Brent up and I said, I need this guy's phone number. I got to have coffee with him. And this was back in the days when we had coffee.
Yeah.
We would meet in person.
No longer. Yeah. No longer.
And we met at that coffee shop, and that was the beginning of our friendship. But I remember I had yet to hear you play live. And so I'm listening to your record and we're talking. I think we even, went out and I let, and that's, I introduced your music to Victor and all that. But I'd never seen you play live. But one day I was flying into Colorado, and you were too, for different reasons. Yeah. And you hit me up and you said, I'm playing at this place called the Soiled Dove, which was just this super cool venue. And I went there, and actually in the back of my mind was, is he going to be able to pull this off live?
Yeah, fair question, man. And I don't always feel like I can, but yeah.
Oh, and it was one of the most beautiful concerts. You're just up there with an upright bass, and you did play guitar for a couple tunes, which you're a great guitar player as well. But I just remember sitting in there, and there's this natural reverb to the room, and the room was packed. And I think I just told this to Scott the other day, but I'm sitting there, and some couple people come and sit next to me, and they had no idea who he was. And they're like, so does he play violin? Is it cello? And they had no idea. And it was fun just listening to them experience your music for the first time, because I don't know what they were doing there. The tickets were like $25.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hey, maybe they won them in a contest or something. I don't know.
But it was a beautiful concert, and it's one of the things that if you get a chance to catch Scott live, you toured with Lauren Daigle. Lauren Daigle,
yeah,
that's a big deal.
It was, man, it was so much fun. I did about 40 shows with her, so a good like a tour in the fall of 2018, right after Himalayas came out. So it came out on September 21 on 2018. And then I think the 28th was our first gig with Lauren, you know, so it was like I was just out right on the road, and that was such a huge gift too, because like any new artist, and I still consider myself a new artist because Himalayas is my first. It's not the first album I ever made, but it's the first album of like this version of me, you know, and that'll of course still evolve, but it's like I felt like Himalayas was a new flag in the ground of like, here's what I'm doing, here's what I do, and you know, and so as a new artist just coming out of Ricky Skaggs' band, and releasing an album and hoping it would go okay, to be on a tour like Lauren's was tremendous, because just put me in front of a lot of people,
a lot of exposure.
Yeah, a lot of people, and honestly too, it got my voice in better shape, which I was already singing a lot, but when you were on tour night after night as doing a show, you know, like, because I sang a lot in Skaggs' band, and then I would sing at my shows, but my shows in 2018, like between Skaggs' band and the Lauren Daigle tour, I would do a tour here and there, like a handful of things. But then once the album came out in 2018 hit, and then I had headline shows in 2019, then more shows with Lauren, and then some more headlines, like basically I did like, I know I counted at one point, I did 150 shows in the year to the anniversary. So it's pretty busy.
Yeah.
It was pretty full.
Your approach to the bass and your approach to songwriting to me is of course beautiful, but you're in Nashville. Of course, this is Nashville Lowdown, and Nashville is a song town.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of us bass players here that support a lot of artists, but there are some who are their own artists, right? Not a ton of bass players sing lead.
Right.
And not a ton of them maybe write as much music as you do. But you co-wrote with a lot of people. You co-wrote the song "The Lord Is Coming."
Yes.
With her.
And
that got Grammy nominated. That album went Grammy nominated.
It was.
This year.
Yeah.
And I've listened to both versions. I'm a little biased towards yours, but hers has got the R&B and hip hop thing going on too.
It's so epic. It's so
very
epic.
different. Yeah. It's like two different experiences, and that might be the one that we have to add into play tonight, because I know Deb Cohen's out there, and that's a song that she really enjoys.
You know, like what's cool about the two versions though, and actually there's a third version because there are 3 writers on that song, and so me, her, and our friend Alana has a version too, and what's great is I'm playing bass on all 3 versions. So,
well, that's the thing about being a bass player,
right? Yeah. If I co-write a song on the upright bass, they're gonna be like, so we need you to but it's great, because what's cool is how different all the 3 versions are actually, but the bass is the backbone of all of them, and on mine it's so sparse, it's just the bass and the voice, and I kept it that way. It just felt right. Like we recorded it, and it's like, man, I don't know if I need to add anything, and
that was a question I was going to ask you, because there are 3 versions, and hers is so different from yours. But like when you wrote that collaboratively, was the bass in the room for that, right? Or
for that one, yeah. So
it's not always in the room when you write.
Not always, but maybe half the time. It's fun, right? You know, it's like, it's cool, and it can also be hard to write on, because depending on what I'm trying to play, it can take me so long to actually be able to play and sing it, because there's just the independence factor. Even though it's like you might hear me do it, and it may be easy to think like, oh, he could just sing and play anything. Probably eventually, you know, like
I know you put a lot of work into pulling that, a
lot of time. So if I come up with a riff, even if it's great, if I'm in a writing room and we're just now coming up with lyrics and the melody, and like, it's hard for me to write at the same speed as like if I was just strumming a chord or just playing something really simple on the bass, because it's the way I've written these intricate things is pretty involved and like interwoven, the melody and the bass. And I think I remember at that session I actually had the bass line and just sort of like the very beginning of the shape of the melody over that bass line. And that was pretty much like, that's kind of what I had. So I had the bass line and like that little scat, you know, and we wrote it from there. And so it was, I mean, I'm so glad I brought that song into that co-write, you know, and because I thought I thought it was really cool. I was like, you know, and too, if you write songs, like if you're with great people, like, yeah, bring your best ideas too, because it just goes to show ideas actually aren't, if you're not stingy with them, the more come. I think it's not like you could go into some writes like, oh, I really like that one, I kind of want to finish that one alone, but it's like, unless you think you're not, that other person's not like good and qualified to write it. But it's like, yeah.
Well, and that goes to something you and I have talked about before is the notion of artists giving back to other artists in a variety of ways, or not being scared to share ideas or to collaborate in a world. And we're in a world that when we get past all of this crisis, we'll be in a world where there are less places at the table. For a while at least. And I can already see kind of people, you know, kind of hunkering down, and I'm like, that's not where the artists need to be. But you have a very open spirit about that kind of collaboration. You work with a lot of musicians on multiple levels, and what kind of fuels that in your mind? That kind of
just honestly knowing how generous people have been with me, because I feel lucky to have just along the way had mentors like Ricky, like Bruce, like Victor, you know, like that's crazy to me, because Victor's been my hero since I was a teenager, and I first started the bass, and someone's like, oh, you need to hear Victor Wooten, and it's like and I really haven't picked up the pieces yet. So it's, you know, it's for those people to actually come into my life and so into me and what I'm doing, it really I feel wrong not to turn around and do that for other people, because it's the way we all have to come up at some point. So
that's beautiful. Do you mind playing The Lord Is Coming?
No, not at all.
There's everyone will appreciate another song, I'm sure, and I know Deb Cohen will really appreciate this.
Move that mic, hope that's not loud. All right.
Like Daniel in the den, we're surrounded by these hungry lions, staring in the jaws of death. We reach for saving hands. No help will come from man. The Lord is coming. With the Red Sea closing in, there's no safety in their mighty horses. Can you feel the driving wind? Behold the crashing waves. The Savior's on his way. The Lord is coming. Coming, coming, hurry, hurry, bring us to the promised land. Glory, glory, we reach for saving hands. No help will come from man. The Lord is coming. The Lord is coming. All you people of the land, bound beneath the weight of all your sorrows, turn around while you still can. There's no guarantee you'll see tomorrow. The doors are open wide. Will you choose death or life? Come in, hurry, hurry, bring us to the promised land. Glory, glory, we reach for saving hands. No help will come from man. The Lord is coming. Oh, the Lord is coming. The Lord is coming.
Woo. I like this private concert.
Anytime.
What's something, Chris and John are telling me to get my mic a little bit closer. What's something that Nashville taught you? Because you come from Houston area.
Yeah.
Then you went to school in North Texas, right?
Yeah.
And then you ended up here in Nashville. What has Nashville taught you as a musician, as a bass player?
Yeah.
That wouldn't have happened if you hadn't happened here.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many levels, right? Because I could talk about the songwriting and the arrangement side of it, but especially because of, this being bass, like on a bass level, I would say the Nashville scene has taught me a lot of discipline, like in a big way, whereas like you said, I went to North Texas in Denton, Texas, had a great 4 years there, did the jazz degree, and I'm glad I did, but I felt like the mentality, this is a good thing. The mentality of those years for me and a lot of my fellow students was always push your boundaries and experiment and try to, play in a way that you are on the edge of your ability a lot. And there's definitely something to be said for that. That's a beautiful thing. Like you want to be doing that from time to time, and those moments are so fun. But as a bass player, especially, and I would say as any accompanist for sure, it's like, you know what? There's a restraint that happens in the really pro players where it's like, now I'm playing at 20% of my capacity and I'm cranking every note out of the park. It's like, it doesn't, and you never miss. And I'm not saying I never miss, but the really good guys, it's like, it is so solid and it's so right. And you never left wondering like, where are they going with this? Right. And so it's kind of this discipline of knowing. And I'll say too, like for young bass players who are, trying to get gigs or something, like this sounds so obvious, but know the music deeply. Like, like if you get a gig and you're, when gigs return in 2029, that's a joke. Okay.
2028.
But when you get a gig and somebody has entrusted you with their music, like learn it really well. And now I had to learn that the hard way too, because being in Ricky's band, for instance, was hard because there's so much material. And so like, and he is liable to pull from any album of his and, let's do this song, and sometimes, and I got caught like this happened to me one time, and he didn't even say what song it was. But now, mind you, I didn't grow up in the bluegrass world. I that was new music to me. And so I was learning the genre and the vocabulary of it, and trying to learn all these songs that were like back of your hand to all these guys that had grown up listening to that music. And so I remember there's a song called "Rolling in My Sweet Baby's Arms," this is the tune, and that is absolutely a standard, like every bluegrasser knows it. I did not know it because it's just not part of my
rolling in my sweet baby's arms.
Yeah. And that's the one, and I just didn't know that song. But to anyone else in the band, it was so obvious. But here's the thing is, it's not. This was a sound check. Thank God, not a show. But it's not like Ricky was like, "Hey guys, let's do Rolling in My Sweet Baby's Arms. Why don't you kick it off?" It was just, and you're like in. And so without ever saying the name of the song, he was like, "Let's try that again." Ding 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 in. And I'm just like, oh, what are we doing? Like, and what song am I even trying to play? And the way those, in that band especially, there's no count offs. That's just not even a thing. It's a kick. Like, so play a kick that can either be on the mandolin or the banjo, or the guitar would kick it off, or fiddle. It's so who's playing the kick? Oh, you got the kick on this one. And so I'm trying to, that song might actually be a banjo kick now that I'm thinking about it. But
do you mind showing people what you mean by the kick? Like if you did it on the bass?
Yeah. So
it's a term they use a lot.
It'd be like mid. Now the thing is, so well, here's an example. I ended up doing one on a song we used to sing that Ricky was like, at some point he was like, "Hey, you should sing this song on the show." And it's called Rocky Road Blues. And so I ended up doing a kick on that song, just kind of, and I don't know if bass kicks are really a thing. It's
right.
But I ended up doing it, and it was so like and so that, think of that on the mandolin, chop chop chop, and you're in. But you have to know what the kick is in order to hear it, catch it in time, and come in at the right spot. So it's kind of inhumane, because it's like there's no like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just like out of nowhere, you're about to be ready. And now that's kind of an easy one. Some of them are like banjo, and it sounds like, to your ear untrained, like before you know the music intimately, it sounds just like banjo, and it doesn't sound like you have to be listening for the melody of it, because there is a melody of banjo, come in, and you're like, don't you dare be late, and so it's I really hope Ricky or Russ, the banjo player in that band, sees. I hope they're seeing this right now. But I just remember being mortified. But honestly, at that point, it was on me, because I'd been in the band for a couple years at that point, probably 3 years. And guess what? My job was to know.
Yeah.
It's like, so the fact that I didn't know that song is not, it's not Ricky's fault, where it's like, oh man, give me a heads up if, like maybe I would have appreciated that at the time. But it's just like, you know what? Ultimately, if I'm the bass player, I should know the song. And so I had all this time to study up, and I didn't know I would need that song that day, but it would have been cool if it was in my back pocket. So over prepare, and like when you get that list of tunes, if you possibly can, memorize it all, because I think it really impresses people that are hiring you when you just show up and you know the music and you're just ready to go. And rehearsal's not about learning the songs. Rehearsal's about like just making sure everything's flowing right. And so that's the kind of and even knowing parts, like not just the basic structure of the song, but like, here's how the bridge part goes of your recording that you spent years and a lot of money making, like, and so that takes kind of a lot of memorization, but you get good at it as you do it. And I can say that because I didn't used to be able to memorize songs hardly at all. Like, it was very hard, actually. Just, I think maybe my brain is just more like, I could read, and I would read a chart, but but as far as memorizing tune after tune, and that was not my strength at first. And I had to learn how to do it by just hacking away at it. So
that to me seems, it's not only Nashville, but to me, Nashville is a means rehearsal town.
Yeah.
Practice is practice, rehearsal is rehearsal.
Yeah.
And people who come here are new often treat a rehearsal like a practice, and
it's
not necessarily not on the pro level, right? It's like
right.
We show up for rehearsal, you may have one rehearsal before a gig.
Right.
So you're supposed to know everything by the rehearsal.
Right. You have done your homework, and then
everyone puts their time in.
Yeah. Yeah. Although when I was starting to put my music together, and I had written some songs, because when I do shows, there's solo songs and then there's songs with band. And so when I first got my band together, I remember calling my buddies, and this was not professional, but I remember calling them, and we got into a studio, just my friend's small space, and I was probably like 45 minutes late. And so by the time I get there, they're like in there like jamming, but I had told them all, like, hey, let's get together. I'm going to bring in a song, and let's like work out that song, and we'll practice and kind of rehearse, I guess. But really the point of it is not to go in knowing it. And so we kind of did the opposite on purpose, just to sort of take the pressure off of the, like, okay, we got 10 songs to learn, so you're probably going to learn them all 70%, rather than let's dive deep into this one piece of music. And so that was a fun approach too. But when you're hired, when you're like, when someone has entrusted their music to your capable hands, you want to show up and do it.
That's cool. I'm going to ask you another question real quick, but I'm going to go ahead and let everyone know that if you have a question for Scott because of the delay, I want to go ahead and let them know. Put that question in the chat room. Chris GC and John Diaria are involved, the editors, a bass player. And so let us know what questions you have, especially if it's something about Nashville or his experience here. One of the things I want us to, before we get to those questions, you've approached the COVID crisis in a very particular way that's interesting to me, and working with a lot of musicians through this crisis. I've used you as a model in some ways of how to approach it with a positive attitude, with an innovative attitude. I mean, it's hard for everyone, but you're can you just talk a little bit about how you decided mid-March to, you were about to go on another tour, like a lot of musicians. Yeah. But you switched things around, and part of it has to do with the online stuff. But how did you approach that? And you, with a very positive attitude, but what's some strategies you have been using during this time period to kind of advance your music?
Man, I wish I had a better strategy over like some mastermind plan, but I think what I've been trying to do is stay pretty engaged with the people that are watching, and that's not just to like keep some sense of momentum, because that's kind of all toast right now. It's right. But it's like, but what it is I think we have to remember our job as artists and musicians, like in a broad sense. Our job is bringing some joy and light and truth to people through your music. And so when that happens in a club, that's like people are dancing, and you're in, and it's like you're giving them a feeling, and that feeling doesn't make everything okay, but it eases some of the pain of whoever they are, whatever they're going through. Like, it makes their life a little better and easier that second. And so to me, if I'm trying to get in front of people now online primarily, although I did do something and have been doing something called the Corin Sing, which is I did drive out and
I
play in
remember that.
people's yards, which I need to do more of at this point, because I think we're locking back down, and so
Yeah.
and so the point being, I think, like, think of somebody like your friend calling you, even if your day is a complete disaster. If your friend calls you, that makes it better, and that's not a cheap kind of better. That's like, okay, there's things to hold on to, and there's like a lot of good in my life, and so music is kind of like a friend. It's there, and and it is healing, and so I think seeing the purpose in what I do helps make it like, okay, I still need to do this because it's important. It is important. And so yeah, all of my tours got canceled. I do have right now, I have a prospective show in August outdoors, so that's in Oklahoma City where cases have not been bad so far. So we'll see. I mean, I'm hoping it happens. I would love to do that and feel comfortable about doing it. So I yeah, we'll see. But the bottom line is that if we just stop, then it kind of won, didn't it? So it's important to keep going because it encourages other people to do it too.
And I know you've been like this is a room in your house.
Yeah.
This kind of loft area. And I know you've been doing a lot of kind of shows and stuff from here that's been interesting to watch. And the sound is always really good, which I appreciate on the watching side of it, because there's some stuff I've tried to watch online that's not. If people don't own a professional studio, sometimes they don't understand sound staging for this kind of stuff. But it's one of the things I've appreciated. A lot of people have just, and I understand it, have just kind of dropped off the mat, so to speak.
Yeah.
But you've been there, and I remember when you were driving around town and playing with the people in their yard, which I thought was hilarious.
It was fun. We need to do it again. I need to do it again.
Up on like an NPR or something. Like I read about it in the news.
Facebook did.
Okay.
But it
Facebook
was.
I knew I read it somewhere else. I was like, Scott.
Randomly, my buddy came and taped it, and so one way or another, people at Facebook that produce shows or produce little clips for this like group in Facebook called Community Voices. They reached out and were like, we love this, and can we produce a show on it? And by show I just mean like a 2 or 3 minute little video. And it's like, of course, it's great. So it was perfect too, because I had just released my song Joy, which I had been singing to people in the yard, and it's like, I just want to bring a little joy, make a happy noise. I can't hold the weight of the world, but I can carry a tune. So it's just like,
that's a great video too.
Oh yeah, the Joy video is fun too. A bunch of people sent us like videos of them. They had written the lyrics in sidewalk chalk, and it's really fun. And so it's kind of just the right theme for that that idea. Let's get out to people and let's sing for them, and let's remind folks that the world's not completely ended, and that we'll make it out of this. And there's a lot of good on the other side of our current trials.
Yeah, it's awesome. A couple questions from people. One is Chris GC sent this. I'm not sure if this is from him or from someone but one of my favorite people. It says, one of Scott's many gifts is his lyric writing. How does being in a town with so many great lyricists teach and inspire him?
It's really you have to try to rise to the level, which you never will, because there's just geniuses here that are so amazing at lyrics, and you'll come across all these songs and you're just like, damn it, I wish I had written that, and so but being around it a lot and writing a lot, and you maybe end up writing with some of those great writers, teaches you how how to think about it better. And so I wouldn't claim to be the best lyric writer in any way, but it's definitely gotten better since I've been here, because you're influenced by all these people that are just so gifted on that. It's crazy. I mean, I think people don't always really understand how amazing and hard lyrics are, because to get the tone of them right, and for them to for you to just hear the song and never be taken away and the spell broken, they have to be airtight. If there's any one line that's doesn't make sense or is just wrong or stupid, or it ruins the whole song, and so that is a dark art. And so I'm trying to learn it. But thank you, whoever asked that, because it's dear to me. I've been writing songs with lyrics since I was 17 maybe, and so it's just part of why I love music. And
cool. On that note, Matt Cohen writes, Scott, what got you into playing bass? You said, you kind of started on the bass like a lot of us.
Super whim decision.
Really?
Absolutely a whim decision.
It was like key Monica, or
it was like my sweet parents. I think my mom came up to me and my brother one day and were like, hey, do you guys want to learn guitar maybe? And I had seen my they're trying to think of things for us to do so we don't get in too much trouble. And I had been to this summer camp over year after year over the summers, and this friend of mine there brought his bass guitar the last couple times, and I remember him sitting on the park bench just playing his bass, and for all I know he was terrible. It doesn't matter. I have no idea. I just saw the thing. I was like, that's pretty cool. And so when they asked me that question, my folks asked me the question, I said, ooh, yeah, can I learn the bass guitar? And here we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got another question from John. I'm going to hold it till you play your last song, because it connects to that. But as we kind of come to the end of the hour, I want to respect our time boundaries because everyone's got so much to do. So much to do right now. But I want to make a couple of points about your music that people can think about and look at. First of all, even I know some of you that are watching this aren't bass players, but subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Yep.
We're going to be interviewing a lot of Nashville bass players who are prominent musicians and do things like Scott does. And I think you'll be interested to do that. And I want to thank Chris and John for their openness to kind of continuing to do this series in whatever fashion it ends up shaping up to be. It's great to work with Bass Magazine and kind of have the opportunity to be focused on Nashville. I love this town, and it's kind of fun to make it about that. But you have several things that they can kind of attend to. The Himalayas album, I can't recommend it enough. It's beautiful. It's got so many different beautiful parts to it. But when you listen to it, if you can, listen to it in order and think about the journey and think about the theme of the first song and the theme of the last song. To me, that's I never even talked to you about that yet, but I'm cool. Just like, it's great. I got it one day. I was like, oh. Also, you have quite a few videos that you've made with a couple of guys, Craig and Steve. I think Stevie have both been involved in them.
Buddies of mine, yep.
Using local people to make your videos and cinematographers, but you have quite a few fun, interesting, beautiful, videos that people can access on YouTube.
Yeah,
live and ones that you've shot with drones and was it on Iceland?
Yeah. So one of the songs on Himalayas, the Beginning Againers, is the first song on the album. Me and some friends we actually took a trip to Iceland that started as a harebrained vacation. Like, hey, if 7 of us go and split everything, it's not that expensive, and like, okay, sounds great. And then that turned into me renting a bass over there, and my friend Stevie had all his camera stuff, and so we took a bunch of footage and made a like I am playing the bass, but it's not like live or anything, but it's just it's like a lyric video, but it's set in this amazing, the glory of Iceland, which is like being on 5 different continents at once. It's like black sand beaches, glaciers, peak bogs. You know, you're like yeah. So it's a weird, amazing place.
So they can check out your videos. You do have, even though your album is, you know, completed, you've also done some smaller projects with some single songs, you know.
Yeah. So I actually have 2 EPs coming out this year. So that I made last year. I've released single songs from them. Joy and my last single, Deep Dark Well, are on one EP. And then there's a song called Say I Love You that I released at the end of last year. That is on this other EP that's more orchestrated, and so one's kind of poppy and one's orchestrated, and they're but they're both in their way. In certain songs are very bass driven, but in totally different interpretations of what that even means. So those are both coming out.
That's awesome.
I haven't picked exact days.
And then you have kind of informally today, but formally July 6th, you're launching a Patreon offer, which if they want to find that, where would they go?
So Patreon is a crowdfunding platform, kind of like Kickstarter, but it's an ongoing thing. So what I've done is I just today is I'm calling it the close circle launch, because I've put it online and given it to some of my closest fans, and I have a group called the Mulvaheads. Right. Pretty good, right?
Oh yeah.
So the Mulvaheads have the Patreon page first, and we sent it to them and a few other people that supported a Kickstarter I did a couple of years back, and the whole goal of the thing is new music. And what I'm excited about is that I actually have those EPs in the pipe right now. So it's like. Right. It's like I'm ahead of the game rather than behind, kind of, which is that never happens. So, so we're starting this now so that I can just get to work on the next thing without worrying about too much about is this going to bankrupt me? Because, and it's like just the times we're in. And I actually thought of doing this pre-COVID too. I was like, it's a great idea. And one thing I learned from crowdfunding like Kickstarter is that it really involves people and engages people in a pretty amazing way that's actually hard to replicate. There's something about people actually investing in what you're doing, even on a small level. Like if you join the Patreon, you can do it at $3. It's not expensive, but right. It's investment. It's like, okay, now I care that this is happening. I want to see it do well. So that is up and live as of a few hours ago. Really, we just did it. So, cool. So it's like you said, it's launching publicly July 6th. But if you're digging around and you go to patreon.com/Scott Mulvahill, it might show up.
That's awesome. And I think it's a great thing to point out, the artists that we love, it is kind of almost like if I bought a CD, my car didn't even have a CD player, right? But
I know, yeah,
it plays Spotify. But I can do this for artists, I can support them, and it's a lot less than a CD. So I encourage you to check that out. As we wrap things up, I'd like to ask you to play another song. But as you do that, John, the chief editor, bass player, wants to know a little bit about the bass.
This one,
yeah, it sounds so great, and your tone is so great. So if you could tell a little bit before that, and then I'm going to let Scott play
what song do you want me to play?
Oh, I get to pick it.
Rod picked.
I love the way you bow.
Yeah.
So with Himalayas.
Could do it. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So the bass, this guy, it's actually a 1950 K bass that I got. Let's see. Would have been 2014 when it came to me. And it's just got this really great sustain to it, and this evenness that I don't even that wasn't in tune, but double stops don't usually sound that good. Like, I mean, a great bass is going to sound great, but the clarity is really nice. And so, it just really has a nice balance of like some thump and some nice punch, and then the singing quality to me, especially in this middle range. So it's a 1950K rebuilt by my friend Randy Hunt, removable neck, so I can actually fly with it. But there's the funny thing about basses, like upright basses, like it's like, great, let me go buy one. It's like, go to eBay, you know, like, or like, I wish somebody made this, you know. Englehart kind of does, like, they still make these style basses, but it's like there's something magical about this one, certainly. So but yeah, so you know what, actually got my rosin right here. I'll play Himalayas, but I haven't bowed today. Have you had your bow today? Let me get that nice and close to the mic.
That's real stuff.
Yeah, that's yeah. That's better. All right. I have stood still for too long, made excuses, and looked on from the sidelines, getting too comfortable. I have waited in this place while the years fly in my face. I am ready to trade it all. I wanna go where I've never been. Gotta know to come back different. Home is wherever I wake up. Hollywood to the Himalayas. I gotta find out what I'm made of and go where I've never been. Go where I've never been. Oh, I have run out of meaning. I am starving for feeling. My hands are reaching as I finally dare to dream. And I've been put on this mission, giving myself to the vision. My heart's begging to break at the seams. I wanna go where I've never been. Gotta know what I've been missing. I wanna come back different. Home is wherever I wake up. Hollywood to the Himalayas. I gotta find out what I'm made of and go where I've never been. 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 I have stood still for too long. Stood still for too long.
I haven't stood still for too long. I wanna go where I've never been. Gotta know what I've been missing. I wanna come back different. Home is wherever I wake up. Hollywood to the Himalayas. I had to find out what I made of. Go where I've never been. 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 Oh.
Yeah. Woo. Thank you so much.
Thank
Scott.
you guys. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you guys for joining us. We know you have lots of options, not outside your house right now, but lots of things you
We
can
know
be
you're
doing.
stuck. You know you're a completely captive audience.
We know that you could be watching other things. So thanks so much for joining us. And I hope you've enjoyed as much as I have. Get out there, support your local musicians and this local musicians. Look at Scott's videos. Check out his music if you're not familiar with it. But I hope you've been inspired by this in the same way I have. And we're all in this together. It's great to have people like Scott out there motivating us, inspiring us. So thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Rod.